Hey everybody, Mike Sullivan here from fullpreterism.com. I thought I would just check in with everyone and just kind of give an update where we are in the ministry, where our financial funds are currently and where they need to be, some of the projects we're going to be doing and have been doing. So I just wanted to go through that with you. I pull this up. Of course, as most of you know, the first book project that I was involved in was House Divided, Bridging the Gap in Reformed Eschatology, which was a co-authored response from David Green, who was the editor, Ed Hassert, and myself, to a co-authored book by 7 Reformed theologians, When Shall These Things Be? A Reformed Response to Hyperpreterism, edited by Keith Matheson. They sought to get their best Reformed theologians, half amillennialists and half partial preterists, to see if they could come shoulder to shoulder in unity and refute us. And of course, it was a house divided, and pretty much both of their positions didn't refute our position. They actually formed it, and that's why they have never been able to respond, not once, ever, to our book. And it is interesting that on the back, I have a statement by a glowing review by the late, great John L. Bray. He said, I've not seen another book as strong as this defending the preterist position. And that was pretty awesome, considering I've got his book on Matthew 24, which I think is a classic. And the guy was like second to none as far as research. And I know, Gary DeMar would probably agree with me on that. So, I was involved in that project. I really enjoyed that. I'm currently, after the syllabus I'm writing on Armageddon Deception, I'm going to go back through House Divided and do some tutoring and putting some questions together in a syllabus for that as well. And I'll explain that here at the end as far as my tutoring ministry is concerned. So that was our first book. And then my next book was a book by myself where I just wrote Armageddon Deception, the Eschatology of Islam and Zionism, a biblical response, kind of getting into the political aspects of implementing full preterism. And that's something that I've been seeing over the last 10 years, just seeing how the Rothschilds are using and funding evangelical Zionism and how they have implemented, evangelical Zionists in our government to do what they want. And these poor evangelical Zionists have no clue. They have no clue that they are being used. So it's quite the weapon that they have, and they're wielding it and using it. And so I wrote a book hoping to counter that and refuting Islam, exposing Islam and the Quran, exposing the Talmud. That is greatly needed in our day, and kind of showing the eschatology, the violent eschatology of the Talmud, the Jewish Talmud, and refuting those positions and giving you the biblical truth along the way that Armageddon is a battle that has already been fought, all right, between AD 67, 67 and 70. The Lord came soon, shortly, and quickly, and the rapture has already taken place inwardly and spiritually. And I get into all that in the book. And then a movie project that we have going is Armageddon PSYOP that I also wanted to discuss. So let's go ahead and jump into this a little bit. So the first area that takes up most of my time, I would say, are the podcasts and writing the books. But let me go over some of the podcasts that I do weekly or try to do weekly when I can get Zach and Rick and Joel together, which is kind of like herding cats. Not always easy sometimes. But so the first one is our Revelation study. We're going through the book of Revelation. We have a podcast going, again, with Zach, Rick, and Joel. Another podcast that is very consistent, and that's me and Don. And we go through all kinds of topics. We'll critique debates. We'll critique books. Right now we're going through the Song of Moses. That's taken quite a long time. That's a series we have going, how the New Testament is developing the Song of Moses, since I've been writing a book on that subject, and I'll cover that in a minute. and Don has lectured on that subject. We love that topic, and I know a lot of you are enjoying it because you're telling me. The third podcast I've got going is Talking God and Politics with Mark, Mike, and Denise. Denise being my wife and the eye candy of the show. I wanted to implement my wife because we talk God and politics all the time in our marriage, all the time. And she is always on Telegram. She's always on X. And, we're always talking about current events. And I'm like, babe, you're kind of better at this even than I am on some of this stuff. I'm going to bring you in. And she's just done a fabulous job. And it's great to be able to work with your wife as well. So, very excited about that. And then, of course, the Gospel Eschatology podcast. I haven't been doing that a lot because I've been focusing on the writing, but I'm going to get back into that really soon. And sometimes I have guests on, like I did that 4-part series on the rapture with Gary DeMar. I had Alex Newman on, who's been on Fox News and Epic Times, and I mean, you name it. This guy is a expert when it comes to the New World Order, what the World Economic Forum's doing. And sometimes when you have guests on, that costs money. Like I offered Gary some money, and he said, "No, it's okay. Put it towards your ministry," and that was very gracious. But I look up to a lot of these guys, and some of these guys are professionals, and this is what they do full time, and their time is valuable. So, I gave Alex Newman, I contributed $100 to his ministry to have him on for about a half an hour. And so, just so you know, sometimes getting guests on and scheduling these things, that also takes a little bit of money. And then I will be picking up the series In Adam, in the Land versus in Christ. And again, all the constituent elements that made up Old Covenant Israel, I'm showing you how they're types and shadows, how they're fulfilled in Christ and through the church, right? That's what Paul said. All the promises of God are yes and amen in Christ. And of course, through the church. And then sometimes number 5, sometimes I'm preparing to be a guest on someone else's show, on someone else's podcast. I've been on the Conspiracy Farm, UFC champion Pat Militich's podcast with Jeff. I've been on the Rice Report recently, which Eric Rice is just an awesome guy. And a kind of cool story. My wife is always on Telegram, and she listens to his podcast quite a bit. And I guess she had mentioned in the comment section, you should read my husband's book, because he was kind of getting into Zionism and stuff. And he messaged her back. He says, yeah. And so I sent him the book. He says, I'd like to have you on my show. And so we did a show. It was 2.5 hours long. And if you haven't listened to that podcast, you really need to. It's haven't been able to get it on my Patreon page. We've had some issues uploading it there, but you can find it at the Rice Report on Rumble. And again, it's about a 2.5 hour discussion on just the Talmud, the Rothschilds, and evangelical Zionism, and the theological and political ramifications of what those systems are doing and how to solve that problem. So again, a great podcast. Hope you can check that out. Also, I appeared on Shelley's There's No Place Like Home. She wanted to discuss the new heavens and new earth. So, I put together a slideshow for that. So again, these things take time, and your contributions are helping me with that so much. That's why I wanted to tell you how much I appreciate all that you guys do. Book projects. This one has been taking most of my time because I'm trying to finish it before the conference. Actually, I'd like to have 2 books finished and published before the Berean conference. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it. It's going to be close. The first one is From Moses to Messiah, the appointed time is near. How and when the New Testament authors teach the Song of Moses would be fulfilled. I just finished my last chapter, chapter 7, which was John and the Song of Moses. And I'm toying with the idea of having a concluding chapter. I'm in discussions right now with my editor to see if that's something she thinks needs to have happen. I hope not, because I am so done with that book. I love every minute of it, but I just, you're just looking at the finish line and you just want to get through it. And I believe I have. So hopefully. But of course, a lot of this is determined on my editor's time frame as well. She has a life. I'm not going to tell you her name yet because I know all you guys are going to be wanting her to be your editor. So I am keeping this secret for now because she is totally, totally awesome. And so, a lot of this depends on her schedule as well. And I'm just resting in the Lord, not worrying about it. The second book is Leaving the Late Great Rapture Behind, the Spiritual Catching Away at the Coming of the Lord in AD 70. It's basically just an exegesis of 1 Thessalonians 4. Gary DeMar encouraged me to, after our four-part series on the rapture, to put this together in a little book. Of course, I have an exegesis of 1 Thessalonians 4 in my book, Armageddon Deception, but I'm going to expand that a little bit and just make it a little book. So I think, because to be honest with you, those are the two big issues that we face right now, is these evangelical Zionists that are in our government that I'm afraid are going to run us into World War III, thinking that they're fulfilling prophecy because they think Israel is a fulfillment of prophecy. Therefore, Armageddon is right around the corner because we're the terminal generation, and their whole goal is so that they can be raptured. They think that, it's okay for Israel to go kill Christians in Syria or Palestine because that's just part of God's prophetic plan. I mean, what are you going to do? You have to support God's people or you're going to be cursed, right? That's what the Schofield Study Bible says, and John Hagee. So that's kind of the pitch there of the globalists and the Rothschilds is, come on, you got to support God's people to take all this land because that prophecy needs to be fulfilled. And we got to have Armageddon, World War III, right, guys? Come on. Yeah. Because, and here's the clincher to the deal, because you want to get raptured, right? Yeah, because we're going to fly off of here. So because I know that is such a major issue, that I'm really focusing on this book on the rapture. So just finished the first book today, possibly, if I don't have to do a concluding chapter, which I probably will. That'll only take me probably a day. And I'm about halfway done on the rapture book. So I look forward to picking that up next. And let's see what else we got. The movie project, Armageddon PSYOP. I wanted to talk to you guys about this a little bit and get your opinion. We started a Go Send Fund, whatever it's called, and we raised about $4,200. And for a SAG movie, you need about a minimum of $300,000, and we kind of leveled off at 4,200. So the way this project has gone, and I need some counsel on it, and I want to hear from you. Of course, I wrote 2 movie propositions, okay, at the end of Armageddon PSYOP. And Rick Welch, came to me after he read it and said, hey, I've got a screenwriter I use, let's take your proposition and give it to him. I'll give him a couple $1,000. You don't have to deal with anything. Let's see what he comes up with. He came up with it. It was good. Then I was kind of getting discouraged. I didn't see the project going anywhere. And then Brett Prieto, I was introduced to him, very talented screenwriter, Christian actor, producer. He looked at the script, and because he's won all kinds of screenwriting contests, he totally redid it. And it's professional. It is awesome. Of course, Pat Miletich, UFC champion, world champion, he wrote all the fight scenes. It's all professionally done. All the dialogue between the MMA coach and the fighter, that's all done. I went through and I did the debate scene between the Muslim apologist and the preterists as they're debating Matthew 24. And it's just it is the best movie script I have ever seen. And I am so frustrated at this point because I wrote it knowing what's going to happen. And that is, there's going to be a Muslim terrorist false flag here in the United States to pull us in to a war with Israel. All right. And all these Christians are going to think that they're fulfilling Armageddon and the rapture's right around the corner. And that is being used by these globalists. And so I've known this for 10 years and I've been frustrated. That's one of the reasons I wrote the book. So I wrote the script. It's professionally done. It's perfect. And you know where I'm at now? I don't know how to get it into the hands of anyone to read it. I literally can't even find the address to Mel Gibson's studio. These guys are so hard to get a hold of and contact. I'm really frustrated. I tried Kevin Sorbo, and he said unless you have all the money, funding for it, I don't do it. I don't do movies without all the funding up front. I'm like, whatever. And I don't think he would work out anyway because he's pretty much a part of the problem. Him and the Left Behind thing. At least Kirk Cameron came out of that nonsense theologically and is at least a partial preterist or a closet full preterist. Kevin, I don't know where he is. So I don't even know if that would be a good match. I thought that Mel Gibson would be a really good match because he knows a lot about the dangers of Zionism. He knows a lot about the Rothschilds. So I thought this would be right up his alley, but I can't even get it to him. And so I'm really frustrated. To be honest with you, I feel like giving up on that project. You guys donated 2,200 between all of you out there. And then we had one person donate 2,000. And I'm going to give it another couple months maybe. But if I don't see any movement in that project, I'm going to be offering your money back. Okay. Especially the person that gave the 2,000. And for those of you that contributed, $25, $50, what I would ask you to do, I'll give your money back if that project just doesn't take off. Or I'll ask you, is it all right to take half of it or all of it and put it into the publishing aspect of the ministry? Because with these 2 books, trust me, it costs money to pay someone to do a cover, to pay someone to do the formatting. All of that, the publishing, it takes a lot of money, like up front, usually about a couple thousand for each book. So if possible, if I get your permission, I'll reach out to each of you that have contributed to the movie script project and ask you if you want your money back or if you want to reallocate it to that part of the ministry. So we'll look into that when it gets there. But I would like you guys are my biggest fans, right? You guys have connections that I don't have connections to. You have advice that I would never even think of. So I'm just, every time I feel like giving up on this movie project, it seems like God would send someone into my life and kind of breathe new life and put some wind back in my sail. But I'm at a point now where it's like, okay, Lord, like everything is done except for the money and the connection, getting this into the right hands that will take the time to read it to see how incredible it really is. But I can't even get to that. So a little frustrated on that. Anyway, debates. We're looking forward to possibly June. Myself and Don will be having a partner debate with Matt Slick. He's a Reformed Presbyterian charismatic, and he's done a lot of debates. And I think his assistant is Steve, and I don't know Steve's last name, but he's the guy that I was kind of in contact with a few months ago. So Don has a lot of projects he's been doing. I've got, again, these 2 books, all this other stuff I'm doing. So we kind of put it towards June. So hopefully that will take place in June. We have a tentative agreement. So I look forward to that. I mentioned tutoring early on. I have one student who contacted me, and I really liked what he had to say. And so I thought I would offer it to the public as well. He's paying me $250 a month, and he wants to go through Armageddon Deception slowly, chapter by chapter. And what we're doing, we're both coming up with questions that are going to form kind of like a syllabus and a test type thing. So once a week, we have an hour discussion where he reads the chapter, like he read the first chapter on Islam. We had an hour discussion on it. I gave him the questions before our hour conversation. And so what we do is we go over the questions, we go over the chapter, any questions he has, we go over any of the other topics in the chapter that he wants to ask me about, he can. And so if you want to get involved in that, and say you read Armageddon Deception a while back, but you forget a lot of it and you would really like to go through it in detail, think about that as an option. At the same time, it would help me financially to get some writing projects and pay the bills so my wife doesn't get on me. Happy wife, happy life. And so that's kind of what we do. That's that project. And again, eventually I'm going to do that with House Divided, and I might get with David Green and see if he would like to help me with that as well. So that is where we are financially. Remember, the goal to get me to do this part-time, where I can focus my time and energy on the podcasts, on the book writing, on debates, going on other podcasts, articles, all that stuff, was $2,000 a month. That would get me to where I could do this like 4 or 5 days a week and work 2 days a week, 2 or 3 days a week with a part-time job, because I really need about $3,500 a month to pay our bills. And if I get $3,500 a month, I can do this full time, all the time. I do it full time anyway, but as best I can. So that's kind of the goal. And right now we're at about 1,100 on Patreon, and we get a few $100s here and there from PayPal. Sometimes more, sometimes less. And a lot of this is going by faith, because some people donate every month, which is awesome because you can kind of sort of count on it for the next month. And some people just, one time and then they're done, which is fine. I mean, you're going by faith. So I just appreciate anything you guys do. It doesn't matter if it's a one-time gift or if it's a regular gift. I just appreciate everything. So, and I'm honest with you guys. I'll tell you exactly where we are financially all the time. So right now we're at about 1,100 on Patreon. We get a few hundred, 400 from PayPal usually. So we're about, I don't know, 1,400 or so. And then I've got one donor, one guy that said, okay, Mike, this is the best that you've been able to do so far. I'm going to get you up to that 2,000. So, he'll send me, 600, 700 a month. And that's been a blessing. So I'm at the minimum. The minimum is 2,000 a month so that I can do this part-time. And if we can keep more coming in, that'd be awesome. But if I go less, then I'll just figure then the Lord's just kind of closing the door. But this is where we are right now. These are the projects that I have at hand and that I'm, involved in right now. So I just wanted everyone to know. And Lord bless you, and I'll keep you informed. I'll give you another update probably in a month or two. All right. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section, or any advice like on the movie script or any other projects that you would like to see done. Go ahead and put them in the comments. Okay. Thank you so much.